What's up guys, Nick here back again with another video, and in this video today I wanted to talk to you guys today about a specific anabolic androgenic steroid known as trenbolone, or otherwise known as Tren for short. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this compound is it seems to be a really popular choice among a lot of bodybuilders and a lot of fitness enthusiasts that are lifting recreationally but get involved in anabolic androgenic steroid use, and for good reason. I mean, it severely overshadows the progress that you can achieve with other compounds at equivalent dosages, so it makes sense gram for gram or milligram for milligram to choose trenbolone. But it does come with a caveat, and that is the fact that it has a host of side effects, and one of them in particular is what I'm going to be talking about today, which is the neurotoxicity or the neurodegenerative effects of trenbolone. But before we do that, if you're not already subscribed guys, please hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification button so you get notified of any future videos. I really do appreciate the support, and with that said and that out of the way, let's dive into the video. So the study I'm going to reference today is a 2015 study. It was conducted on rats, a combination of rats, pregnant rats, and cells from the rat's brain in vitro, so in a petri dish essentially, and it was pretty staggering, the results that they found. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into it. I'll read a few excerpts from the study and then I'll expand upon that. It's just so you have a better understanding. Now it's worth mentioning and keeping in mind two key points in regards to this study before we dive into it. And the first one being is that this was conducted on rats, it was not conducted on humans. So although there is some carryover and applicability to us, there is always going to be that potential room for error. And so definitely keep that in mind. Now, the second point that is worth mentioning is the fact that the dosages they used in this study to identify neurodegenerative and neurotoxic effects on the brain, it was incredibly low. So it equated to roughly 0.85 milligrams per kilogram of body weight if they were to do the study with humans. And so for a 100 kilogram male, all they would have to take to participate in the study would be 85 milligrams of trenbolone per week if they were 100 kilograms in body weight. And if you ask me, I don't know of a single individual who runs as little as 85 milligrams of trenbolone per week. Most individuals who run trenbolone in a steroid cycle aren't just running trenbolone on its own. They're usually running it in unison with testosterone and something like masteron or some sort of oral anabolic, maybe anadrol or T-bol. And then on top of that, they're usually using 200 to 400 milligrams of trenbolone per week. They're not using 85 milligrams. So if you can see neurotoxic and neurodegenerative effects at such a low dose like this, then I think it's safe to assume that you would definitely see some pretty severe neurodegenerative effects with the 200 to 400 milligram minimum dosage that most people seem to run. The study that we'll be looking at today is a 2015 study titled 17-beta trenbolone, an anabolic androgenic steroid as well as an environmental hormone, contributes to neurodegeneration. It goes on to say in the study that 17-beta trenbolone accumulated in the adult rat brain, especially in the hippocampus and in the fetus brain. It altered beta amyloid peptide 42 accumulation. 17-beta trenbolone induced apoptosis of primary hippocampal neurons in vitro and resisted neuroprotective function of testosterone. Presenilin-1 protein expression was downregulated while beta amyloid peptide 42 production and caspase 3 activities were increased or upregulated. Both androgen and estrogen receptors mediated the process. 17-beta trenbolone played critical roles in neurodegeneration, and they concluded, therefore, exercisers who inject large dosages of trenbolone and common people who are exposed to 17-beta trenbolone via various ways are influenced chronically and continually. Identification of such environmental risk factors will help us take early prevention and measure to slow down the onset of neurodegenerative disorders. So what they found essentially was as trenbolone accumulated within the brain, it led to cell apoptosis or cell death within the hippocampus. Now these neurons or these cells found in the hippocampus are crucial in the development of new memories. So you can start to see how this closely ties in with Alzheimer's disease. And furthermore, it upregulated beta amyloid peptide 42 production and caspase 3. And these are very fundamental in the development of plaque within the brain that you see in Alzheimer's disease patients. And so increased plaque buildup means increased likelihood of Alzheimer's disease development and increased likelihood of memory loss. And it was causing cell death in the part of the brain that is responsible for the formation of new memories. So that's it's pretty alarming. So essentially you're going to experience visuospatial memory loss over time if you continue to use trenbolone. And a lot of the effects of this are suggested to be irreversible. So essentially, once you've done a few trenbolone cycles, most of this damage is likely irreversible. So it's pretty serious. So you definitely do not want to take this lightly. Now, they also did in vitro test tube experiments, and they essentially observed the same thing when they took the cells outside of the natural environment. So when they isolated the cells in a petri dish, taking them from the rat's brain, and then observing what happened when they added trenbolone to the petri dish. They found the same thing. What they also found is that trenbolone can pass through the blood-brain barrier, and most neurotoxins can't do that. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the blood-brain barrier, is to prevent these kinds of foreign substances from passing through and affecting the brain. However, because of the structure and the nature of the trenbolone molecule, it was able to pass through the blood-brain barrier pretty much effortlessly, and thus causing and wreaking a lot of havoc on the brain. In addition to passing through the blood-brain barrier, it was also observed to pass through the placental barrier, which means that the pregnant rats in this study, the fetuses, the unborn rat fetuses, were actually negatively affected by the trenbolone as well. They exhibited neurodegenerative effects just like the rat receiving the trenbolone. So it's pretty frightening. If you're a female bodybuilder who is pregnant, please don't run Tren. Now, the second study I wanted to look at was a survey conducted in 2012, and it was titled Cognitive Deficits in Long-Term Anabolic Androgenic Steroid Users, Drug and Alcohol Dependence. And it goes on to say that this study looked at anabolic androgenic steroids and whether or not they presented neurotoxic neurodegenerative effects within the brain. They did this by recruiting 31 male anabolic androgenic steroid users and 13 non-anabolic androgenic steroid users, and they were all aged 29 to 55, and the results showed no major difference for the most part until they observed the hippocampal region of the brain. Now, you got to remember that is the part of the brain that the first study, the animal study, showed trenbolone negatively impacting and causing neurodegeneration in. Now, what they found is this part of the brain, they exhibited one standard deviation lower than the non-anabolic androgenic steroid users in terms of cognitive performance tests that bias the hippocampal region of the brain. So there you have it. I mean, I think it's pretty conclusive to say that trenbolone does in fact cause neurodegeneration. Even though the first study was a rat trial, the cognitive function tests confirmed that the hippocampal region of the brain was in fact impaired by anabolic androgenic steroid use. So my conclusion is, guys, I mean, among the host of other side effects, the fact that it causes neurodegeneration to this degree, in spite of having testosterone within the system, is quite serious. So why does this occur? Well, one of the main reasons why I think this occurs is the fact that trenbolone has such a strong binding affinity to the androgen receptor that it just simply overpowers testosterone, which is what the first study suggested, because in spite of testosterone, it still showed that trenbolone caused neurodegenerative effects, and they did mention that in the first study. And not only that, trenbolone doesn't aromatize to estrogen or convert to DHT, and both of those two secondary hormones are essential for general health and function within the body. We require those two hormones for various functions, and when we have an insufficiency or an inadequate supply of those, we run into a lot of adverse health complications. And estrogen, as we know, is a very neuroprotective agent. It's a very neuroprotective hormone. And so if you don't have sufficient levels of estrogen, you're going to exhibit neurodegeneration and neurotoxicity accumulation. And that's just the reality of it. So if you're running trenbolone in your cycle, you're going to experience some neurodegenerative effects. And if you don't have any estrogen in your system, it's just going to be even worse. So there isn't really any way to escape it, guys. Just understand that if you run trenbolone, you're essentially taking a huge risk, and you're potentially setting yourself up for developing Alzheimer's disease later in life had you have not even been genetically predisposed to it in the first place. So there you have it, guys. That's the reason why I don't like Tren. If you did enjoy this video, if you got something from it, please don't forget to like the video and comment down below. It really helps me out the YouTube algorithm and helps me get out there and reach more people. So I really do appreciate that. So if you could do that, thank you very much. And hit the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed, and I'll be putting out more content in the future. Until then, guys, peace.